All right, welcome back to Dane Interviews. Today we are joined by a very special guest. Today we are joined by, if I pronounce your first name correctly, is it Graydon?
Yep,
All right.
exactly.
And then Van Eert?
Earth.
Ertz.
Van
All right, Van Ertz. I was close. I was close. So you might not recognize that name, but you probably will recognize the something he has in his, should I say extensive? Do you have an extensive Disney collection or is it
yeah,
small?
we're kind of sick that way. We have a lot.
What are some of the pieces besides the thing that you're most famous for?
God. We have a Jungle Cruise boat from the Magic Kingdom, the ones you used to pilot around where they now have stroller parking here at the
Oh,
Magic
the like
Kingdom.
the small ones?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
They
Wow, that's
sold those
cool.
up. We have one of those along with the controller. When they redid Creature Comforts at Animal Kingdom to turn it into Starbucks, they
Hmm.
had like bugs that were around the lamps. We have one of those. We have one of the original Animal Kingdom park benches.
Oh,
I
wow.
have the original fountain of the Enchanted Tiki Room from Magic Kingdom.
Wow.
We have a decorative base of, I think it's zebras, that was in one of the gift shops at Animal Kingdom. Oh yeah, and I, it's a parrot uh, topper that went on one of the fixtures as well from Animal Kingdom. And besides that, we have a host of other collectibles that, you can buy, obviously
Yeah.
from Disney and Disney Store and all of that.
Yeah. That's amazing. I have much less of an impressive collection as yours. I don't have many used props, so I'm very fascinated by this kind of stuff. So you have one of the most unique items, and you have the unicorn from the Discovery Island riverboats, and you were on it, right? You were on
Yeah.
the, so you can explain it better than I can. So go ahead and explain to my audience what you have in your backyard.
Well, originally, when Animal Kingdom opened, one of the things that they promoted in all of their preliminary posters was this boat ride, Discovery River boats. And it was kind of a way to show guests what they would see in Animal Kingdom. So if they went on to what was then called Safari Village, it's now Discovery Island, you boarded a boat, it was very slow moving, and it took you around the island that the Tree of Life is on. And as you passed through each land, it would give you hints of what you'd experience. Um, like Asia was still being built, so they had steer grazing out on rice paddies. They had decorative fountains shooting water near Safari Village.
Mhm.
In Dinoland, they finally added in the huge audio animatronic dinosaur Aladar drinking water. And Beastly Kingdom, strangely enough, even though the land was never built, that area was the most fleshed out on this ride. And I never understood why they spend so much money fleshing out a land that they
They
decided
spent more
not
spent more
to.
time on the advertising than they did on the actual land.
Exactly. So as you came into the area, and you can still see the place where Beastly stood in the water, there's a rock. As you
Mhm.
cross over the bridge to go to Pandora, if you look off to the left, you'll see a rock in the water, and that's where he was mounted. It's kind of back in an inlet. So as the boat would go by, it would start turning, and you had to kind of turn your head back to the side to see him. And he was standing there on a rock, rearing up. And then as you turned, one of the boats had kickers installed in the seats, and there were supposed to be bubbles in the water, and it was supposed to be a kraken coming up under the boat. When you passed under the bridge, there were all runes carved into the walls. There was a little stone hut. And then what's still in the park today, there's stacked stones that look like a dragon pouring water into the river.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was the dragon cave with all the suits of armor and stuff all over it. And it would be a ball of fire that came out of the dragon's cave as the boat passed it. The nights came down really quick. Guests complained. They said it was too gruesome for their kids to see. That's what
Yeah.
dragons do. They
Yeah.
kill nights. Um, the unicorn was taken out briefly, and originally it was bright white, and the effect was supposed to be strobe lights and fog machines that would pump out smoke to give it that kind of misty look.
Oh.
As the strobe lights were moving, it was supposed to make the unicorn look like it was actually moving and rearing up. This is Florida. in bright sunlight, which is when the park was open. The lighting effect never worked. The smog was either, or the smog, the fog was either too thin or too thick.
Yeah.
So they decided, okay, it looks too much like a statue. Let's age it. So they took it out, aged him down, did him with like a brown wash, made him look like marble, put him back out. And he sat there until, well, the ride was open about a year after the park opened. It got such horrid reviews. They finally shut the ride down and they took the unicorn off its pedestal so that guests couldn't see it and stuck it backstage. And that's where it sat until they cleared the land for Pandora.
Wow. So was it in one of those buildings that are like, I think they were used for Jam and Jungle Parade. They would hide they would put uh
The floats in there.
the
I'm
floats in
not sure what
there.
they actually stored him,
Okay.
but he wasn't taken out nearly as carefully as he was put in. There were gouge marks on his leg and around his
Mm,
midsection where you could tell they just wrapped chains around it, lifted him out on a lift, and carried him out.
yeah.
Uh, a friend of mine that I used to work with at the Great Movie Ride actually works in surplus property, the department that handles all of that stuff. And when the Great Movie Ride closed, he and I were talking. He said, I'm the one that told them to put that at property control and auction it off.
Oh
He
wow.
was sitting backstage. So he
Yeah.
never told me where it was stored. So I don't know if it was outside in the elements or if it
Yeah.
was in the old parade building or what, but it was definitely in the area where Pandora ended up being built.
Yeah. It's very strange how they get like how they take out animatronics because, I don't know if you heard about the Buzzy situation. You probably did.
Yeah.
If it was stolen or not. I believe that Disney took it out. And I mean, the way that that was cut is just so strange. So for them to like you said they probably like took a chain and just ripped him out. It's very strange how they take away animatronics.
Or
Um,
even the Aladar figure.
oh
What
yeah, yeah, you're
that?
right.
They stripped the skin off, shipped it all the way out to Disneyland Paris to the Walt Disney Studios there, and sat it in the boneyard as a piece of junk until, because it snows there, it finally rotted away and then they dumped it.
Yeah.
That was one of the most advanced figures they had, and it was beautiful when it worked.
Would they have gotten rid of the unicorn if it wasn't for your friend?
Probably. It probably
Okay.
would have ended in the dump. Or it would have, if they hadn't have cleared it out and if he hadn't sent it to property control to auction it off, it may have gone to a vendor. And
Hmm.
we know what happens when vendors get a hold of things that are Disney.
Yeah.
They take them to some antique mall, mark them up by 2,000% and try and
Yep.
sell them. It's
Yeah.
funny because when we bid on it, my husband, who still works at Disney, Bob Buchowski, he was sitting in the office one night and he said, "Hey, where was there a unicorn in the park?" And I said, "Well, the only one I can think of was there was the one on Discovery River boats." I said, and there was that one on the carousel in Journey into Imagination. He goes, "No, this is a statue." I said, "Well, is there a picture?" I go, "What does it say?" He goes, "All it says is this unicorn is sure to put a smile on your face and brighten your day. Measures 5 feet tall, 12 inches. They didn't spell out the words, they put the hash marks,
Yeah.
12 inches wide, made of plaster." And I said, "Is there a picture?" He goes, "Yeah, but it's small." So I went in, it was like a postage stamp, and it showed it laying on a pallet. So yeah, I'm thinking, all right, that's smaller than I thought it was because I remember it being pretty
Being
big.
yeah.
Yeah. And I said, "Yeah, that's it." He goes, "Do you want it?" I'm like, "Well, think about it. It's something from a land that was never built." He goes, "All right, I'll bid on it." So he bid on it, got outbid by somebody, not by much, but he got outbid. So he waited till the closing day and bid on it again. And he did it right as the auction was ending. He put in a proxy, and the
Oh
auction
wow.
blanked out. And a few minutes later, he got emails, saying, "Congratulations, you won." So he calls me and tells me, "So we're going to go pick it up that week." And he said, "Get your friend with her truck." And I said, "We don't need that. I'll open the hatch on the car and take down the seats and slide it in. It's only 12 inches wide." He goes, "No, it's made of plaster. It's too heavy." I'm like, "I'll put it on the roof." He goes, "No, it'll damage the car. Just get the truck." I'm, fine. And it's a good thing we did. We drove up to property control. which at that point was behind the Magic Kingdom here at Disney World.
Uh,
Um, she followed me up. He had already gone up after work to pay for it. And they had a big gated area out back where they stored large items that they sold. So we pulled up, parked. I get in her truck. She drives over to the gate. The woman opens the gate. We pull in. I get out of the truck, and he's standing there with a smirk on his face. I go, "What?" He goes, "It's over there." I'm okay. And I walked over and I looked down, and my words literally were, "What the are we going to do with it?" Because it wasn't 5.5 feet tall. It was 12 feet tall.
oh my God.
5.5 feet from the hoof to the tail. Thank God it's not plaster. It's made of fiberglass. So we literally spun the thing around. She backed her truck up. We lifted the head up, the two of us, which is the only part we could have lifted, angling it up, put it on a piece of foam and slid it into the back of her truck. And when we got to our house, that's how we got it out. We opened the garage and slid it out of the truck into the garage. And it took up one whole side of our garage.
What was your plan? What were you gonna do with it? Did the idea for the Instagram come about right away, or did you have to think
So
about it
that
for a while?
Instagram came later. Facebook came first.
Oh, okay.
Um, he sat in the garage for 8 months. Well, we figured out how to patch the damage and how I was going to mount this thing. Luckily, under his two hooves that he's rearing up on and his tail, there are metal supports with flanges on it. So I figured out what I needed, and I got 3 5-gallon tubs from Lowe's or Home Depot. I got the plastic buckets. I put a piece of wood against the flanges on his feet, marked out where those were, drilled the holes where the bolt holes were in those flanges, took it out to the backyard, marked the ground, dug holes, put the buckets in, filled them with concrete, and inserted the bolts into them and let it dry for 2 weeks. But it sat in our garage for 8 months.
Mm.
So when the cement finally hardened and I thought it was secure enough to put them on, I called some friends and said, "Hey guys, let's raise a unicorn." So like 6 friends came over, carried him out of the garage around the house, and it took all of us. And we had to stop and set him down halfway through because he's just big and unwieldy.
Yeah.
Finally got him in the backyard, and the entire time, all I'm thinking is each flange has 4 holes in them. And I had positioned all of the bolts. And all I'm thinking is, these damn things better line up. They don't, I'm going to be so pissed off.
Yeah.
Got him out there, stood him up, put him on, and only 2 of them were just slightly off. So we just tapped him with a hammer, and he settled right into place.
Wow.
And that was when I said to everyone, I said, "You can take pictures of them. You can't post pictures yet because I'm going to be the first one to post it."
Yeah.
And that's the first time someone said to us, they go, "What are you guys going to call him?"
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of that. I'm like, I don't know. So people started saying different names, and I'm sitting there thinking,
Can you remember some of those names?
what were some of them, Bob? Yeah, they weren't nothing really memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were. Some of them were common. Call him Fred. Call him this. I'm like, no. Call him the Magical. I'm like, no.
Metro.
And I'm like, okay, well, he came from Beastly Kingdom. What? And I started thinking I'm like, no, not a Disney name. That's too obvious. I'm like, wait. And I looked and I go, Beastly. I go, his name is Beastly the Unicorn.
Beastly, yeah.
So that was when we named him. And he sat there outside for a few weeks. And I'm like, I posted a picture of him on Facebook. All of our friends did. And all of our friends from Disney are like, oh, that's so cool. And I thought, it'd be kind of neat. I'm going to start a Facebook page. So first I did a profile, but you can't have a profile for a fictitious person. So it wouldn't let me create a profile called Beastly with the first name and Unicorn is the last name. It kept coming back saying that's a fake name.
Hmm.
So his Facebook profile is capital B.T.Uni as the last name, BT Uni.
BT.
And that's how I got around getting the Facebook profile.
Yeah.
So that's where I first told the story. And then I created a Facebook group for Beastly the Unicorn. And then after that is when I think it was the first Christmas where we decorated it, or Halloween. First Halloween I decorated him.
Okay.
Like, I want somewhere where I can just post pictures. And someone goes, we'll use Instagram. I'm like, Okay, so I started his Instagram page, and from there, it's been really kind of funny how people react and the
Yeah.
comments that they make. I have people write him and talk to him because with the Instagram page, I treat it as if it's really Beastly replying.
Uh-huh.
And I have people writing and going, "Hi, Beastly, how are you today?" And I replied and said, "I'm good. How are you? How do you like your new home?" "Oh, it's great. I love it here." And things like that. And it's funny seeing people and how they respond. It makes them happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny because I noticed that some of your captions and stuff are like in character. So I was when I was thinking about doing this interview, I was like, how funny would it be to like do an interview with the actual unicorn? But I was like, nah, I
That would be. Except for
don't.
that doesn't move, but that would be, yeah, it would be funny.
Yeah,
Because I definitely
maybe
have a
next
voice
time.
in my mind of what Beastly sounds like. He's very soft spoken and very polite.
Yeah,
Nothing, political, nothing like that. He's always very nice to people.
yeah.
I actually had someone post once. I posted some photos, and they wrote a comment, and they said, "This is the most wholesome page on Instagram I've ever seen. I just love it." I'm thinking, my name compared with wholesome, not normally, but whatever. So I'm always very careful with his pages to keep it, you know,
Yeah,
I guess you'd say.
yeah. Well, I do want to know a little bit more about Graydon, the person. So where did your Disney fandom originally start?
Uh, God, as a kid, I mean, I grew up in Southern California, right near Disneyland. We lived
Mm,
in Torrance, so it was close.
yeah.
Um, Going to Disneyland was a special trip back then. I loved going. Um, Always saw Disney movies. Watched The Wonderful World of Disney right after Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom on Sunday. Um, and I've always just had an affinity towards Disney. I worked at Disneyland for the 30th anniversary. I will say I was very close with a number of animated characters,
Mm, okay.
18 of them to be precise. Um, that was a lot of fun, but it just didn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
Uh, and after about 6 years in retail, I moved out here to Florida and started working at Walt Disney World at Epcot, back when Epcot was really cool and had all the, meat packing stuff that it used to have.
Yeah.
Worked at the land boat ride. That's where I started. That's where I met my husband, Bob. He was my trainer.
It's a great ride.
Um, Worked there, went over and learned World of Motion and Horizons, the original attractions.
Oh man.
Horizons was great. I loved Horizons. It was such a
I've
great ride.
never got to see it, but I wish I did. It sounds so
Yeah,
cool.
that was a cool ride. What was neat about Epcot was
What year did you work at Horizons?
I started at Epcot in '90 and worked there for a year and a half.
Okay, so that would have been too
Why
early.
early on still?
Okay. Because if you
Um,
closed it, I was gonna ask you about Hoot and Chief. I don't know if you know who they are, but I was gonna ask you if you ever saw them in the park at all. But um yeah, continue what you were gonna say.
um, and then after World of Motion and Horizon, after Motion and Horizons, went over to learn Spaceship Earth, and then transferred to the studios.
Okay.
And that was back when you still had to audition to get a role at the studios because it was still a working movie studio at that time. Went to the Great Movie Ride,
Oh,
became a tour guide and then a trainer. Even back then, as much as I loved GMR and it was a fun place to work, and we made a lot of great friends from Great Movie Ride. A lot of great people, very
what did you
talented.
do? What did you do at Great Movie Ride? Sorry if
I
you.
started out as a tour guide,
Oh, okay, cool,
and
awesome.
then after 3 months, they made me a trainer. So I immediately learned the gangster role, and they said, "Well, you have to learn bandit." But at that time, the guys did gangster, and the girls did bandit. No
Mm,
guys did bandit.
yeah,
And I told them, I said, "Well, the only way I'll do bandit is if you let me do shifts as bandit." And they said, "Well, we don't have guys do bandit." I said that I'm not going to train it. I said, "If I can't work the part, I'm not going to train it because I don't know what they go through."
mm,
So finally, they kind of relented. They said, "Fine, you can do some shifts as bandit." Well, then the other male trainers were like, "Well, hey, we want to do bandit shifts too."
yeah.
That's when they started letting guys do bandit.
Oh wow,
Eventually, that led to them letting girls do gangster,
do
which
gangster, yeah,
I thought made perfect sense. I didn't see why they ever separated them, but that was Disney back then.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so worked Great Movie Ride. and then went over to Star Tours, learned that, then went to the theater complex as an attractions host, which was Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, Monster Sound Show, and the old Superstar Television.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that was a fun place to work. And then they started construction on Tower of Terror. And that's the place I love. I went to the manager that was in charge of it for operations and told her I want to be an opening trainer. I want to go to Tower. So while the building was still under construction, WDI asked for 5 people to come over and assist them with test and adjust.
Oh wow.
I was the third operations person in the building. We had to wear hard hats, steel toe shoes. We went in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and worked until WDI was done with us.
Wow.
And the first time I walked in, the majority of the show scenes weren't even in the building. The outside of the building was still being built. And seeing all of that go in was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. It would
So
be really cool seeing that all come together.
I wrote the SOP for Tower of Terror and kept revising it as once we opened and started figuring out how we wanted to do things. Was a trainer there and worked at Tower until Animal Kingdom opened in '98 and went over there as an opening trainer for Dinoland with my
Mm.
husband, both there.
So is that how you saw Riverboat?
Yeah, what they would do is when they brought us in as the test and adjust crew, the park was still under construction. So as they would either bring animals into areas or complete things, they tell the cast that was working, hey, go walk around here. Hey, go eat at this restaurant, like Pizza Safari, the restaurant. When they first installed the pizza machines and got them working, they sent everyone over to eat pizza. They're like, go, we need to see how many you'll pump out. So
Yeah.
all of us went over and had pizza. When Tuskers did their first serving, go over, you're going to eat at Tuskers today. So we tried everything out. And the boat ride was the same way. They're like, hey, they're practicing their spiel. They want guests. Go get on the boat and ride around. So we saw all of that early on before guests got in.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once guests arrived for the previews and then the park opening. It was a neat experience.
Yeah. Were they official? Did you go to any of the official previews, or were you working them and you didn't get to actually go to
To cast
official
previews,
previews for the
they had a
park?
number of days for cast previews, so we went to that, but we also had to work a lot of them.
Mm.
Same with Tower. I worked so many press events. When we did the press day at Tower, they had the camera mount in the elevator, and it was just in one vehicle. And as their talent would ride through with their film crew, they'd get off at unload. The vehicle would come back up to load. The next group would get into film. I sat in that car all day with them, just riding it
Oh
over,
wow.
over and over, making sure that they didn't turn the camera out into the attraction because they weren't
Yeah.
allowed, and making sure they were doing what they were supposed to in the ride. I rode that ride for 8 hours.
Oh
Got off, I think, once to go to the bathroom, and that was it.
wow.
It was cool. It was a lot of fun. I'm like, hey, I rode Tower till I was blue in the face. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get to, I mean, since you were part of the opening day team for, I mean, a whole park and a very important ride like Tower of Terror, did you ever see or meet any of the maybe executives from Disney or anyone famous?
Oh, yeah. Great movie ride. We had a lot of celebrities come through back then because it was still a studio. Um, Walter Cronkite came through while I was there. I
Oh,
did.
wow.
James Seymour came on the ride with her mother. I did her show,
Wow.
and that's a standard thing back then at studios. You always saw celebrities there. Um, at one point, when Hillary and Bill were still, in office, Hillary Clinton came through with Governor Lawton Childs,
Oh, wow.
and they came up and said, "We're going to position certain people in certain areas in the building. And when they get here, we're going to shut off the queue, not let any other guests in. They will come in, you guys will get them through the building, and then we'll resume loading." So they announced, okay, they're here. We cut the line off outside. They brought them up the back way to the lobby, walked them in. It was Hillary Clinton, Lawton Childs and his wife, Michael Eisner, Roy Disney,
Wow.
and some service. So a friend of mine was at the lobby. He
Yeah.
welcomed me to the lobby. I'm in the library. They come in my library. And of course, it's supposed to be, business as usual.
Yeah.
Start the show very discreetly, and I turn around and I'm standing right by the doors. First crack of lightning, the lights go out, and the Secret Service guy standing kind of across from me looks over at me real quick, and I'm just
Oh,
standing completely deadpan.
yeah.
So as the show is running, we would slowly move around the library to the sliding wall.
Uh,
So the show's running, and I very quietly go to the first corner, and I see the Secret Service guy. He's watching the show, and I see him go. He starts looking like, where'd he go? And he
yeah.
sees me in the back room. He's like, he's kind of eyeballing me. I'm just saying again, just completely deadpan. So he looks back at the TV. I move over to the next corner. He kind of glances back, and I'm not there. And he starts looking again. He sees me.
Yeah.
Then I move in front of the wall, and he looks again. Last crack of lightning, the door opens. I'm standing there. As he walks by, he kind of looks at me and smirks. But Hillary Clinton walks by. She's like, "Oh, thank you so much. That was so nice." I'm like, "You're welcome." And then else walks through, and Eisner walks through laughing. Um, and then she got to load and had to pee. Ran her all the way around to the cast break room without ever checking it. And she went into the bathroom. And a friend of ours was in the stall next to her. And the girl in there was very nosy. She sees the shoes. She doesn't recognize them because they're not, the black shoes we all wore.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Hi, who's that?" And she said there was a moment of silence, and the person next to her goes, "Hillary?" And she goes, "Hillary who? We don't have a Hillary that works here." She goes, "Hillary Clinton?" And she goes, "Oh!" And then she realized it was the first lady. It's like, oh my God, are you stupid? So Hillary was active on the ride. Um, when Eisner came through, we were still testing and adjusting, and he came through, and I looked at our VP of the park, Bob Lamb, and I said, "Okay, so Eisner's going to ride the ride." And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, should he?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, he had quadruple bypass." And Bob Lamb looks at me and goes, "I'm not going to ask him that. If you want to ask him, you're welcome to." He goes, "No, no, don't say that. He will." He's like, "Hey, if he has the guts to ask him, knock yourself out." So we're up at load, and Eisner comes up with his wife, and the first thing he does is looks down at the squares on the platform that we load by, and he looks at those. He looks up at the sign on the wall. He looks back at the squares. He goes, "I don't get it." And his wife looks at me and goes, "Oh, Michael, be quiet." So we're standing there, and I said, I have to warn you, this is a thrilling ride. I said, with drops. I said, anyone with heart, neck, back problems shouldn't ride. Are you sure you should be riding, Michael? And he looked at me and goes, "Why not?" I said, "Well, you have a heart condition." He goes, "I think I'm good." I said, "Okay, I just had to ask you." In the meantime, Bob Lamb is standing behind him with my area manager, and they're both like, "Oh my God, he actually did." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to. It's my job."
Yeah.
Um, and Whoopi Goldberg came through. She was a little pissed. She doesn't fly. I don't know if you know that.
She
Whoopi Goldberg
doesn't
does planes.
she
So
doesn't
she
what?
doesn't like airplanes.
Oh, really? Okay. I
She
didn't know
doesn't like
that.
to fly places.
Okay.
So it was when she was dating Frank Langella, and I was training at the time, and they called me and said, "We have a VIP. Can you take him up the bypass elevator or the cast elevator and get him through the lobby, the library, and get him onto the ride?" I said, "Sure." So we're there, and in walks the tour guide with Frank Langella, and then Whoopi Goldberg walks into the exit, and everyone is looking at her. And I'm telling the tour guide, "Come on into the elevator." And Whoopi goes, "No, no, I'm not going." And the tour guide goes, "She's not going." I said, "Yeah, I know, but come into this elevator with me." "Yeah, but this isn't the ride." I said, "No, just come with me." So we get her in the regular elevator, ride her up to the second floor, take her into the lobby. We get in
Yeah.
the library, and she goes, "This isn't the ride, right?" I said, "No, don't worry, you're fine." She goes, "All right." She goes, "Because I'm not going on this thing." "I'll tell you when the ride is here." We get her up to load. Her daughter is with her. Her daughter and Frank Langella get in the vehicle. She goes down to the tower control room, and she's watching them on our cameras. And I explain where they're going in the ride and what they're doing. And I said, we can listen to them scream because we have a phone in the elevators that we can call into. It's voice activated. So I call the lift, and we hear them screaming on the drop.
Uh-huh.
We go out and meet them at unload, and both of them convince her that she can ride this. When we were in tower, she looked at me and said, "What is this ride like?" I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "It's not bad. It's not like a roller coaster." I said, it doesn't take your stomach. I said, it's kind of like a turbulent airplane ride. And the tour guide goes, she'll never go on it. And Whoopi goes, fly. I don't like airplanes. I said, well, no, it's not bad. She's like, no, I'm not going. So we go out to unload. They both talk her into it. So she goes, can we? I'm like, yeah, come on. So I take them up the bypass, put them in the elevator, send them on their way, and I'm waiting to unload with my trainee behind me when she gets off the ride. The doors open, she comes walking out, and I'm standing near the exit. And I looked at her, I said, see, that wasn't that bad, was it? She gets right into my face, kind of to make sure no one's listening, and goes, is this a G-rated show, by the way?
And you can say whatever you want. I'll bleep
Okay.
it if it's bad.
He looks around, walks up, he gets my face and goes, you. I started laughing. And my trainee behind me was like, and she said, no, she goes, it wasn't bad. She goes, I will never do it again, but I'm glad I went on it
Oh
once.
my God, that's funny.
So I walk around,
Someone
I'm
should
just
take her
laughing.
on Soren.
Well, within, I want to say 15 minutes, I get a call. Graydon, come down to tower. You have a phone call. So I go to the control room, pick it up. It's my husband. He goes, what's this? I hear Whoopi Goldberg cussed you out. I'm like, no, 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 no. It had already gotten to the other side of the park. He worked in the back lot. It had already made it across the park.
Oh my God.
I'm like, no, she didn't cuss me out. This is what happened. She was joking. Yeah, that was a fun one.
Oh man, that's funny. That's funny.
But yeah,
Uh,
Animal Kingdom, we actually all had to participate in the grand opening ceremony.
oh wow. I
So
don't
we
think I've
went,
ever watched that. I don't think I've ever actually seen that. What was that like?
it was done out front of the park in the parking lot.
Ah,
And they had seats set up and they had a stage. Jane Goodall came out and spoke. Um, of course, Eisner spoke. Roy Disney spoke. And it was basically just a lot of speeches. They dedicated the park. And then they dismissed everyone and the park was open. And then we had to go back to the attraction and work.
mm,
But we did, I remember when we walked in, all the cast members walked in holding bundles of reeds in our hand, waving them in the air to represent, the fields of the Serengeti.
mhm.
I'm like, I don't think guests are going to get this, but okay. It was fun though. It was a neat event, to be part of it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Disney park?
I love Disneyland. That will always kind of be home, but I really love. It's hard. I love the studios because it reminds me so much of California, which is where I grew up,
Hmm.
and Tower was there. But if I'm going to go spend a day and just wander around Epcot, there's more space.
Mm,
And I don't know, I just like going through the shops, roaming around, people watching. It's just a really relaxing park to be in.
yeah. All right, let's get back to Beastly himself. So when you rode Discovery Island Riverboat, which I think is really cool that you actually got to see him in the because most people not only did they not get to see the unicorn, they obviously don't have it, but I think it's really cool that you get to do both. Um, so what were your thoughts of the riverboats? Because obviously it was not very popular when it
Oh,
was
it's
open. So
understandable why. Um,
okay.
the boats were slow moving. They were open air.
Hmm.
They were too big for the waterway, especially as you come around the backside of the Tree of Life. There's a sandbar that's built there they had cranes out there in the water. Um, if the boat operator would cut it too close, they would beach the boat. And if you beach the
Oh,
boat, it got written up
yeah,
because they
that's not.
out the boat and tow you off.
Yeah. It wasn't on a
And
track, was it? It was a free floating.
free floating vessels, they weren't
Okay.
tracked.
That's what I
Um,
thought.
we had friends that worked on the boats, and they said they were just unwieldy to maneuver. Um, and as it got hotter, of course, you're sitting down in indentation because, of course, that waterway is sunk down with all
Mm,
that greenery around you. So all it does is just create this hot, muggy pit. And there wasn't a lot to see. I mean, in Dinoland, there was only Aladar when they finally put him in.
mm-hmm.
Asia just had the steer that may or may not be next to the water. Africa just had some geysers that would erupt that are
Wasn't
now.
the river near I guess that would be Asia. Didn't they have like the some like lizard things? Like they kind of look like the puppets from Jam and Jungle. Wasn't that
Um,
on the
Asia was on this side, and Safari Village was over here.
Oh,
They
they
had,
were on Safari. Okay, they were in Safari then.
and they moved them
Okay.
around. There was one of a sea serpent, and I forget what the other
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
They were metal cutouts, and they were brightly painted, and they would shoot water all over. And they'd
Yes.
move around to different areas,
Okay.
and that was really about it. So the first time Eisner wrote it, hated it, and the line, because there weren't that many attractions in the park when it opened during previews, guests would wait, an hour or more to get on
Oh
this boat.
wow. Wow.
It
That would
was
be
a lot of nothing.
yeah.
So their first suggestion was, let's get animal handlers on there with small little, um, I'm not going to say cages because they weren't, they were clear plastic
Yeah.
enclosures with things like lizards or giant spiders, beetles, things like that, and talk about that on the boat. But all that succeeded in doing is take the attention away from what's outside the boat to what's inside the boat. So why are you even on a boat in the first place then?
Yeah.
So they tried that for a while. He hated that, and the guests really could have cared less. Um, so then they tried doing a broadcast from the top of the Tree of Life with characters from Tough to Be a Bug, and that was for Radio Disney. And they did this whole over the PA system in the boats,
Yeah.
this ongoing music thing with the characters, with the animal handler on. And again, it concentrated everyone's attention in the boat, not outside.
Away from the yeah.
And finally, one of the last times Eisner wrote it, I guess, and this is what we have heard, his comment was, this barely classifies as transportation. Shut it down. Because you
Wow.
needed an operator for every boat. You needed people on the dock to do load and unload. You needed a greeter for each of the docks because there was one down country when you first come in onto the island, and there's one
Mm-hmm.
up by the bird show. It was just for what the guests were getting out of it, it was overstaffed, and they just didn't want to spend the money on it anymore. And it was not nearly as exciting as all the promotional stuff made it sound.
Mm.
Even the Dragon Cave originally, and I guess they made an actual working animated model of the dragon's head that was gorgeous, that was supposed to come out of the cave and breathe fire at you. Right away, they cut that and we'll go with a fireball instead.
Mm.
It was sad the things they cut.
Do you know if that I don't know, fire machine. Do you know if that's still in the rock? Because I thought I heard somewhere that that's apparently still in the rock somewhere. Do you know if that's true or not?
I don't know if they left it in there or not. I
Okay.
know that they left the rocks. They
Yeah.
built a walkway from Pandora to Asia. They built it around those rocks, which I think is cool that they're still there.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I'm not sure if the fireball machine is actually still in there or not.
All right.
They did. Bob is saying they took it out.
They took it out. Okay. I thought I heard somewhere that, you can never really trust anyone on the
Yeah,
internet sometimes.
yeah. Well, and I can't see why they leave, although they did leave the wave machines sitting in Seven Seas
Yeah.
Lagoon for quite a few years, so they finally sold them off. But
Yeah. Yeah.
they've been known to leave things sitting. River Country, prime example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the
Um,
Knights came out first. They were gotten rid of. They went along with the. I don't know if you remember on Kilimanjaro safaris, the feeders for the animals used to be carcasses of animals.
oh yeah, I do remember that.
Like
Yeah.
the body of a zebra with ribs, and the animals could go up and eat out of it, and that was to look like it was, the natural world. And Eisner's
Yeah.
like, why, we have all these beautiful animals. Why are we showing dead things? That was the reason the whole Big Red story
And
went
the
away.
Big Red. Yeah. Animal Kingdom was a wild place. I know. In the opening, you got Big Red, you have the riverboats. It's insane.
It was unique because it was talking about a lot of the problems that animals face.
Yeah.
The problem was a lot of guests didn't understand it. They
Mm.
wanted to go on and see the lions and the giraffes and the zebra. They didn't really care about the message behind a lot of it. Same with Kali River Rapids. The whole slash and burn of the rainforest thing just
Yeah,
guests
that
didn't
went
get.
away too.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any pictures or video? I heard a story that there's not there's not many pictures of Beasley actually in the riverboats. So are you currently still looking for pictures and video? Do you have any that
I'm
you can share still, or are they all publicly available that you have found?
the ones I have found, I've shared.
Okay.
I had a friend who worked at Tower after me, who runs a site on Epcot, E82,
Mm.
had access for a short time to the Disney photo archives. And I wrote him and said, look, is there any way, because Bob went and talked to show documentation at parks, nothing. I have found blueprints that show where he was placed and the lighting effects, so I have those, but I found no photos. And I asked him, I said, could you find a photo in the photo archives? He goes, I'm already looking. He goes, I'll let you know. He found one,
Wow.
and it's on his Facebook, and it's also on his Instagram page. And it shows him in the park, and it's the only photo that we know of that Disney has of him in the park.
Wow.
I've seen him on one video. Every video I watch of Discovery Riverboats, either the person pans away right at that moment, because as you pass him, the boat starts to turn.
Yeah.
So most people were looking around the corner, not back.
Hmm.
So um, I've looked for it on a bunch of videos. I've scoured YouTube and everything looking for it. There's one person that posted a video that I had never seen that briefly shows him. And then there's one other that shows his rock. So it was done during the time he was removed to be repainted. So I knew it
Hmm.
was testing. But those are the only ones I've ever seen. And I keep posting if anyone has photos, I would love them. I'd love to share them. Um, I even originally, I went on to a guy's site who was doing a podcast about Animal Kingdom. And he said, there was a rumor that there was a unicorn, but it never existed. It was never there. Went on left a comment. I said, actually, it was because I own it.
Yeah, yeah, I got news for you, buddy.
And the guy contacted me, he goes, really? I'm like, yes, and here are the pictures.
Yeah.
And a friend of ours who worked the boat ride, she had pictures, but she got in trouble for taking pictures before the park opened because we weren't allowed.
Mm.
She had to shred all of them. But
Oh, wow.
and she said to me, she goes, when we got it, we posted photos of it. She wrote me and said, I would ride by him every day and say hi to him. She goes, I
Oh,
love seeing the unicorn on the ride. I go,
wow.
do you have pictures? She said, no, I was forced to shred them all because we weren't supposed to have them.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. They were brutal back then. It was pre-cell phone.
Yeah, yeah.
So like Tower, we weren't allowed cameras. They would search your bags when you walked in to make sure you didn't have one.
That's what fascinates me about you see like Disney lost media and stuff from the 90s and 80s. That's what's so fascinating about that kind of stuff because it's not like everything's documented now. I mean everything like Guardians, like or Tron and brand new roller coaster, everything about that ride is going to be documented. Back then
Yep.
not everything was documented. If
What
the if that came out now it would be everywhere. It's
what
fascinating.
surprised me was when Tower opened, I was asked to walk this woman around from show documentation, and they said she needs to photograph all the finishes. So if the attraction ever needs to be refurbished, we have photos of what everything looked like.
Mm.
She thought it was going to be all of 45 minutes before park opening. And we get in the building, and she's like, okay, I need more days and I need
Yeah.
more. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot in Tower.
Yeah, there it is.
3 days going through that building,
Oh, wow.
photographing every finish. So she had it, and they put it in this book. And the parks have a department called show documentation. So at any time, if they need to refurbish something,
Yeah.
WDI can go pull the book and go, oh, here it is, and they have it all.
Oh,
So it surprises me that with a new park, I even wrote Joe Rohde,
wow.
who designed the place,
Yeah.
and said, hey, do you have any photos of the unicorn? And he wrote me back. He was very nice. He goes, no, he goes, I wasn't that much into the finer details of it. He goes, I wasn't even sure that it had ever been installed. And I wrote
Wow.
Dave Smith at the archives when he was still there and asked him about it. He goes, no, he goes, I don't think we have anything on that. He goes, we might have some blueprints, but you said you have those. I don't recall any photos of it.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's
That's
crazy how they'll
insane.
document something so well in one regard and in
Yeah.
another just ignore it.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Your story reminds me a lot of Halix. I don't know if you know what that is. It was like a rock band in the 80s in Disneyland. And it's very similar. There's only like one poster and one picture in the archives. It's incredible how little detail they take with one thing and then everything's
Everything else,
documented. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they used to have a high reach out in front of tower, and this guy would go up in it every day and take construction photos of the building
Oh, wow.
every day to see how far they'd come.
That would be really fascinating to find out where a book like that would be for like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or something. I wonder if that would be really fascinating to find out where like a old ride would be for those kind of
But
books.
the Kingdom would still have that to show documentation for 20K.
Or any old ride, you know what I mean? Like I wonder where any of those are. That would be really cool to
I would
build something
imagine,
like that.
knowing Disney, how they keep so much, a lot of that stuff either A, got thrown away because, oh, we don't have that anymore, let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
Or we need to store this and it's stored in some warehouse
Yeah,
down.
I'm sure a bunch of those books are probably thrown out for old rides, but that would be really fascinating to look at for like something like that or Horizons or Wonders or something. That would be really cool. Um, so you have the Instagram page is called Beastly Kingdom, and then the Beastly Kingdom, Beastly the Unicorn, and then the Facebook page is called BT the Uni, and
BT.
BT Uni, sorry. So have you feared that anyone would try to come into your house and steal him?
Yes. When we first bought our house, luckily we bought our house before we got Beasley because it never would
Yeah.
have fit anywhere in our apartment. Um, we would have laid there in the living room, taking up the dining area. Um, we when I mounted him, we didn't have houses. We sit on the side of our subdivision, and we didn't have houses behind us. We had a
Hmm.
big open field, and we had a big row of bushes behind our house that kind of hid him. And we purposely placed him where you couldn't see him from the front of the house. And our community that we live in, our side of it is mixed between vacation rentals and residential.
Mm,
So we're rentals for vacation, long-term vacations, and usually it was Brits that would come
yeah.
down. And the other side, their house is kind of at a corner, so it's turned away from us. So a lot of people, no one would have seen it in the backyard then, but we knew, number one, we wanted a fence for the dogs, and number two, we wanted a fence to protect Beastly. Um, then they built houses behind us. I'm glad we had a fence because it kind of
Yeah.
hides him. But he has weathered three hurricanes, three or four hurricanes. I've wrapped his head in bubble wrap and we strap him down to the ground and drive stakes into the ground to hold him down because
Mm.
you just can't lift him off and carry him somewhere and put him away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but people have asked on Instagram to come and see him,
Mm.
and I've only had one person who has actually come to see him, and it was a kid who was a huge Disney fan. Him and his mom were coming out on vacation. I scoped out his Instagram page. I looked at all of his photos, made sure he was
Yeah.
kind of on and up, and he
Yeah.
seemed like a sensible kid. And his mom came over and took pictures with him and spent like 2 hours just talking. Very nice, very sweet.
Wow.
I'm really kind of leery to let people know where he lives.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, for
just
obvious
because
reasons.
you never know
Yeah.
what people are going to do. I've had people offer to buy him. I had one guy
Mm.
seriously ask me, he goes, "How much would you sell him for?" I said, "Well," I said, "to be honest, I said, he's kind of become part of the family. I don't think I could part with him." I said, "And to be honest, the price I probably would ask for it, you wouldn't be able to afford."
Mm.
Especially when you see things like the Van Eaton auctions where
Oh,
dune buggies go for, crazy amounts,
yes.
thinking this is a piece of a land that almost got built but never did and never will be.
Hmm. And it is still technically present in Animal Kingdom because of the logos and stuff and the dragon head
And
and the
it's one of
pictures.
those lands that people keep going, I really want to see that land.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people know about it. That's true.
But
It's very, very well
public
known.
reopening, oh, we're gonna have this great land,
Hmm.
and it would have been cool. I think it would have been a hell of a lot better than what they did at Islands of Adventure.
Oh, yeah.
But that's where a lot of the Imagineers from Beastly Kingdom went.
Mm.
But I was really looking forward to Beastly Kingdom, and I think it balanced the park well because you had Africa and Asia in the back that are animals that are alive today. You had Dino Land on one side that was animals that used to live that are now extinct, and then you had Beastly Kingdom, which are animals that exist in every culture throughout the globe but never lived. I just think it would have been a neat complement to the park.
Yeah. So I won't keep you much longer. I just have a few more questions here. So have you ever thought about, and has there ever been an opportunity to showcase him to people like at a D23 or something? Like there's a lot of fan expos at like contemporary, let's say. Has there ever been an opportunity where you could present him live to people who want to see him?
There hasn't been. Would I? Since most of the D23s take place in California, it would be a pain to get him
Yeah.
to California, obviously. Um, right now it would be a pain to move him at all because what I did to hide the flanges that he sits on,
Hmm.
I covered all of those with plastic and
Hmm.
covered the base that he sits on with plastic. Covered all of that with a big mound of dirt and planted it with flowers.
Mm.
So he sits on this beautiful green hill in our backyard. Um, to get him out, I'd have to dig all that up.
Yeah,
So right
yeah.
now, I could do it. It would be hard, but I could do it.
Hmm.
Um, I think it would be neat
Yeah.
because I like that people get excited about him. I think it's cool that they want to see him, um, and he brings happiness to people. That's cool. Um, we honestly, Bob and I have talked about what to do with him later on in our lives. As we get closer,
Hmm.
and I don't know if I'd want to sell him off because I'd want him to be taken care of the way I would take care of him. So we've talked about, I wonder if the archives would take him.
Well, that was going to be my next question. If the archives or Disney themselves have reached out to you to try to get him back for
They
something
haven't,
like
and
that.
it's probably because they don't know he really exists. I wrote them recently and asked if they had any information on him, like who made him, if he was
Mm.
made here at Central Shops, if he was made by an outside company.
Yeah.
I haven't back from him yet. Um, and if we get out to California, I might just pick up the phone and call him one day. I
Yeah.
know you're very cooperative at researching stuff, but I mean, that would be a great place for him because then it would be preserved with
Yes.
dignity.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. I don't want it to end up as a trophy in someone's backyard that's like, ooh, look at me, look what I got.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because it's almost part of your legacy too. I mean, you were the one that restored him, right? Because he was um, kind of almost destroyed in the shop that he was held in, right?
he was dirty. He was beat up.
Yeah. Yeah.
We repaired it. He is in need. We're looking right now at the areas that we fixed need to be redone. And we're looking at the proper way to do it, whether it's marine paint or whether it's, what is it? Latex acrylic paint and recoating him because his clear coat over the years. I mean, he's Animal Kingdom's what, 20, 25 years old.
25. Yeah.
It's a 25-year-old statue.
Yeah.
And he needs some TLC. In the Florida sun, it bakes that paint. So we're looking at when it cools off in fall or spring, touching him up and redoing a lot of him. Well, not a lot of them, the parts that need to be, and then re-aging him. But I want to try to keep them as close to the original as I can
Yeah.
because I think that's what makes him unique. You can strip something down and completely repaint it, and yeah, it'll look great, but it's the authenticity of what it
Yeah,
was.
you gotta
Now,
make it still look, or you gotta make it still have parts in him that are from original.
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our thought process right now. It's like who's going to inherit him? Where does he go? Who's going to take care of him
Hmm.
later on?
Well, I mean, you're taking a great care. You're taking great care of him as it is. I absolutely love whenever you post, seeing what stuff you got on him. What's the Can you share what the next post is going to be? What he's going to be dressed up as next?
What is the next holiday coming up? We did 4th of July.
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day, he'll of course
Oh,
be.
yeah.
Oh yeah, Labor Day. Labor Day is the next one. He'll be, of course, holding the American flag. That's beastly. He's very patriotic. And then Halloween. I need to think of a costume for Halloween.
Okay.
Uh, each year I sit there and go,
You know what? It
what,
would be really funny to do an Avatar one. Do it, dress him up as a
really,
Navi.
kind of a spoof. We could do
Yeah.
that because I did.
Get one of those tails that they sell at
Put it on
Pandora.
here. They sell those at property. I could get those. They sell those at Property Control. Um, yeah, and let me tell you, it's really hard dressing a 12-foot tall unicorn.
Yeah, I would imagine.
When I did the Day of the Dead, I'm like, okay, I want to paint his face like the way they paint, the sugar skulls.
Yeah.
I literally had to take foil and press it over his face and use masking tape to hold it together. And then I sat out there with a paintbrush and painted it on him.
Oh wow.
So I'm out there on a ladder painting this thing, hoping I don't get any on him. And it was just taped on and it was there for the photo. And I'm like, okay, this has to come off. And I took it off. But yeah, it's looking for things that fit a 12-foot tall unicorn are, it's hard. It's hard. His Cinco de Mayo poncho that he wears is a tablecloth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the next post will probably be Halloween, unless I do some random one along the way. Like when it was the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, I put him on the moon. It was a real bad pace, but hey, he was out there.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know. I got to think about it. I want to do more with him, and I have other things that we've talked about doing. I actually would love to merchandise him.
Yes, that would be great. Do you know if Disney would own like
No,
they
they
don't
sold
own
him
it?
out. He
Okay,
was
they don't
never
own it out.
copyrighted.
Own it out.
Um,
I
I
would
would.
buy that. I would buy a shirt of Beastly. That would be awesome.
I was thinking shirts, and I was trying to think of because I can sculpt. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
I wonder if I should sculpt this
Minifigures.
here. But then there's 3D printing. Could I scan
Yeah.
them and print? So I have different ideas of things that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I think Plush Beastly would be adorable.
A flesh Beastly. Yeah, that would be
And
cool.
what I'd probably do is use whatever proceeds from it. My goal is to rebuild his rock in our
Mm,
back. So I want to take away the dirt and I
yeah.
want to build the rock that he stood on in the park
Do you
and have.
know if it would be possible to take the rock from the actual park, or is that not something
No, it's
that okay,
something
that's
that
all right,
it's,
that's what I figured, but
yeah.
never hurts to ask.
And I would want to do it where, if need be, because the way he was mounted there, I'm sure that the rock has an upper lip and then drops
Yeah, and
down.
there's stuff in the bottom. Yeah. It's
I
probably
would
why they
want,
didn't take it away.
I'd want the rock to go right up to his hooves, but
Mm,
have a pieces that I could remove from underneath him if I ever needed to get into that area to lift him out.
yeah.
So that's one of the things I want to work on. And we're in the process of redoing that whole backyard.
Mm.
And I'd probably use whatever proceeds we got to do that, to give him a home that's fitting of a 12-foot tall unicorn.
um yeah, I mean, it's I think it's cool what you're doing. I think it's cool what you did with all the restoration, and as a hardcore Disney fan myself, I really think it's a unique piece what you have. Um Before we end, one last question popped into my head. I know it's been an hour, so we can go quick on this one. Um, there was a boat, and I don't know if you ever seen this over at the Magic Kingdom or if you've been on it. Um, One of the resort loop boats is the boat from Discovery Island riverboats. Do you know what happened to the rest of them? Because I've been trying to figure this out and I have found nothing. So, do you know what happened to the rest of the boats at all?
Back behind AK.
The majority of them were stored behind Animal Kingdom,
Okay.
where the waterway leads back by Mount Everest and behind the stage that's there. They're
Oh,
stored back
yeah.
there by Dinosaur.
Okay.
There's a boat dock back there. They stored them there for a long time, and then they took one of them and they use it around the Magic Kingdom, and usually it's for firework cruises.
Yes.
Mm.
I don't recall them using it as transport to and from the resorts. I think it's for firework viewing. on the water.
It must have been a special day then, because I mean I was on it, so it must have been a special day that they did that then.
One for transportation, one for special events.
Okay, so there's two that they use then.
There's two, yeah, because there were only 4 boats.
Right, there's two that's.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 are still at Animal Kingdom,
Yeah.
and they may be in
Wow.
dry dock at this point. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because they use that dock for or at least they did. I don't know if they do it again for well they use the dock now for the flotillas, and they did use them for Rivers of Light. I think that's where they probably use them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for answering that.
No problem.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on today. This was fantastic. I had a great time talking to you today.
And actually, we'll do one thing real quick before you go, and it might get dark a minute.
Okay.
You go outside.
Also, by the way, your background, I thought that was a fake Zoom background. That's your actual kitchen.
That is our dining room.
That's awesome. I thought that was a fake Zoom background. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's our dining room. I painted that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I painted the wallpaper.
Oh yeah, the
And,
wallpaper. That's
portraits.
awesome. That's really cool.
That is our library.
Mm.
After Tower of Terror.
Oh yeah.
And there's the control for the Jungle Cruise boat.
Oh
right
wow.
There. And the Jungle Cruise boat is.
Oh yeah, there it is. I think I remember I think I might have done one of them when I was really young. I remember them being in the parks, and I think I might have controlled one of them at one point.
They were a lot of fun.
They were. I wish they brought them back.
But we're going out to the backyard really quick because he should. No, lights aren't on yet, but you can at least see him.
Yeah. There he is. There he is.
Oh, Beastly.
Hello, Beastly. How are you doing this evening? Awesome.
Yeah, his lights haven't kicked on yet. But yeah, that is him. So see, he sits on a giant hill.
Yeah, that's gonna be really cool if you're gonna be able to make that into his rock. All right. Well, do you want to tell everyone where we can find Beastly one last time before we end here?
Sure. He is on Instagram at Beastly the Unicorn. His Facebook profile is b.t.uni, and his Facebook group is Beastly the Unicorn.
All
so
right.
There's 3 places you can find him online.
All right. Everything will be linked in the description, of course. If you enjoyed this episode, please let me know by leaving a like and consider subscribing. It would make me a very happy man. And with that, I'll see you all in the next one. I'll say this because it's a Disney video. Have a magical day, everybody.